So this is a conversation with Ergenc and Jatin from Tapnation, and I really, really enjoyed it. We talked all about how UA and creative can work well together. These guys have worked together in multiple locations before. They talk about the structure, the importance of communication, and even a bit of brainstorming around some new innovative ideas they've got for finding new creatives and new titles in the hyper-casual genre from Tapnation, who are absolutely storming it at the moment. Lovely, lovely people to work with. Really, really lovely to talk to. So I'm sure you're going to enjoy this interview. I'm Richard Bond from Replay, and this is Expert 360. Awesome. So hello and welcome. I'm very, very lucky here to be joined by not only one but two members of Tap Nation. So gentlemen, would you like to introduce yourselves? Jatin, why don't you kick off?
Right, I can go first. Thanks a lot for having us, Richard. I'm Jatin, and I'm the UA and Monetization Manager at Tapnation. And I've been with Tapnation with little less than 1 year now. I was before that in UA role as well at Homa Games with Ergenc, in fact. That's why we met first. And before that, I worked briefly in finance, like bond industry stocks. These were my best friends back then. Yeah, that's a story for another day. Really happy to have a chat with you today.
Yeah, me too. I had no idea about that part of your
Yeah,
past, man. There's some stories to be had there. And
yeah,
also, it sounds like you poached one another from Homer Games. Urgent. Do you want to introduce yourself?
yeah, that's true. I mean, Homo Games was my first experience in the industry before I was working as a motion designer for video marketing companies and social media stuff. But now with Homo Games, my gaming hyper casual game experience has started. Journey started. Yeah, I'm a UA artist, so we are working some games with Jatin all together. So nice to meet you here.
Yeah, great to have you both. And listen, I know how much your time is worth. I know how successful you guys have been at Tap Nation, so congrats on that. So let's get straight to it. And what we really want to talk about here is a subject that we've covered a couple of times before in these interviews, but really excited to hear about what you have to say, which is about how UA and creative can work better together. And I assume because you've followed each other from another company that you know how to do this, right? Two very successful companies. So what I'd like to start with was because of your experiences before, and again, not naming names, but I'd like to know if you've ever experienced when UA and creative has not worked well in the past, and what kind of impact that has on the company.
I mean, to be honest, I never had this kind of issue with that not connected. You know, it will be a nightmare for me because imagine if you are not close with your UA manager, or if you are, for example, you are making an ad for Halloween theme. Okay, we are in Halloween week for now, so imagine you are making Halloween theme concept for one pack, one creative, then your UA manager doesn't know about it and he doesn't upload on the time. So it doesn't mean so this kind of things shouldn't be happen. So there must be some at least very low level communication should be in the process.
I totally agree with Ergench because I think what we strongly believe at Technician, or I think like for any publisher for that matter, like creative and UA, they can't really work in isolation. Like we need like one other, and I think the importance can be seen in a way like at Technician, we don't put the job role of creative artist, but as a UA artist because we see them as a part of the UA team. And for example, like Ergensh was mentioning about Hello Impact, because seasonality is a big factor for us to
Mm.
make the game live for long, especially for hyper casual, because we know we don't come with a big shelf life. So we have to try new things and test new things. And like it's basically about testing, failing, and like, standing up again. And I think for that, like it's very, very important. Like we share the data in real time with the creative people because we know like creative people are good with creativity, but for the data side and the what's working, what's not working, it's important like we share with the creative people so they can like ideate based upon that.
Mm.
For example, like we see like testing like different colors in the background, like testing like different camera angle, and like there are many ways we can like iterate the same winning concept to come up with a new winning concept. And for that, like you have to see like what's the CTR, what's the CVR, like is it similar to what we have a winning concept right now? And if it's not, like you have to move on, like rather than just taking like drowning in that concept which is not working. Like if we don't share the data with the creative team, they might be just working on a concept that's not gonna work or that's not working at all, and it's just a waste of time for both UA and creative team. So that's why I think it's very important to have a strong synergy between both UA and creative team. And if it doesn't happen, it's a disaster.
Yeah, and I mean the way you describe that totally makes sense, right? So it's really good that you haven't experienced that. And you say something that I've heard before in our interviews, which is, that essentially you're in the business of failure, right? You fail more often than you succeed, and yet you're almost setting the bar higher and higher and higher every time you do succeed, because then you've got to chase that success. So every time you succeed, you're making your job harder for the future. So let's talk about that success, right? And leave the kind of negativity. When UA and creative is working well together, and please, share as much as you feel comfortable with about the work that you've done at Tapnation. What does that look like, and how do you work together to achieve that?
I mean, like Jatin says, close communication will be the key here. For example, the latest creative performances in terms of data, how did it well, how did it go? We should for example, CTR is low, so maybe we should find a solution on putting a CTA since the beginning, or adding a hand, can also improve the CTR. These kind of things we need to talk about in the communication on the ad side. What can we improve in terms of that creative, even in creative, like making variations. Actually, the previous questions, Jatin was explained the how it should be, how it should be.
Yeah, I think I can add up on that as well. Like working with one of the titles, strongly with Ergenc, which I'm managing as well. We saw like one of the winning title was like coming from the one we actually launched the game, which was like few months ago. And since then, we are like always constantly chasing to come up with a new winning concept, like trying new things, playing around with the same winning concept. But what we really saw, because it was also a trivia game, where like we have to really localize for every country, like not just the creative itself, but also the Play Store and the adapting the ASO strategy accordingly. What I would say, like when we were like scaling in like geos outside of the English countries, like let's say Turkey, Brazil, and so on, and when like the creative team was making concepts about that, we would see like there is a good CTR for the creatives. Like we can see there is like definitely some sort of market, like people are willing to click on the ad and like trying to figure out like what's the game is about. But what we really saw, the conversion rate was not right there. And like what it's a indication straight away, like there's not a problem in the creative itself, but it's more on the ASO and the App Store side. And that's something like not really can be sorted out by the creative team, right? Like if they see the performance in isolation of ASO, they would assume like it's the creative and we need to continue working. But no, we saw this problem, and we worked on the localization of the App Store page for that particular geo just to test it. And we were like immediately able to see like it helped us to increase our conversion rate, and it ended up like being a winning creative in that like localized geos. So I think that's some of the quick wins like you can figure out by working closely together. Because if the creative team is just seeing like, okay, this creative is not getting enough spend, or the IPM is bad, or some other KPIs are bad, but you actually have to see it as a story. Like one cannot be completed without the other, so you have to just connect the dots. And for that, like I think a close communication is the key between the both teams.